I certainly am. Let me ask Harriet first, are your technical problems okay?
Yeah, I think I'm okay now.
Okay, very
Okay.
good. Well, it's really a pleasure for me. I was delighted when Harriet accepted my invitation to come and speak to us as a large group. Most of you know Harriet because she's been a master gardener with us for a long time before I ever was, and is really a delight. She is one of our main teachers at the Historic Triangle Learning Garden. And any of you who have worked with her can't help but to learn from her. She is particularly a guru of anything red in the garden, meaning tomatoes. And she definitely is an expert on how to grow them and how to get the most from your tomatoes. So I'm not going to take her time. I'm going to introduce her right away and would like to turn Harriet loose to give us information about growing heirloom tomatoes. Harriet.
Okay, thank you, Bill, very much. Good morning, fellow gardeners. I hope everything will go right. I can't believe I messed up at the very beginning there, so let's keep our fingers crossed. So I'm here today to talk to you about tomatoes, both heirlooms and hybrids, and as a representative of the Historic Triangle Learning Garden. As many of you know, we're located behind the Fish Building over there off Waller Mill Road. It's where we've had our plant sales in the last couple of years. So this year, when you're at the plant sales, come on over to the garden and somebody will be over there to take you on a little tour. Our mission is to be a learning garden as well as a teaching garden. These last 2 years have been this last year has been kind of tough with COVID going around, but we've used the time wisely as planning, and this PowerPoint is part of that. Okay, so why grow them and eat tomatoes? Well, as you all know, there is nothing like the taste of a sun-ripened tomato. You all can hear me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I actually had my first taste of an heirloom Cherokee purple tomato that I purchased from the farmer's market a couple years ago. And I only had a little bit of money left in my purse. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to buy one tomato and give it a try. So when I paid for it, it took every cent that I had left, $2.50 for one tomato. I couldn't believe it. So I said to myself then that I would grow my own, not only for the economic value, but the flavor. When I had that tomato later, I thought, this is the best tomato I've ever eaten in my life. So I thought, why would I grow flavorless tomatoes that I can easily and inexpensively buy at the farmer's market? So why not grow my own delicious tomatoes? So let's get started here. Okay, I hit share screen and bring up my PowerPoint slideshow from the beginning. Okay, here we go. Tomatoes, grow them and eat them. Why?
Your show isn't displaying yet, Harriet.
Okay, so
Did you hit share content, share screen?
I thought I did. Shall I go back and make sure?
Yeah, just try it again. It's kind of frustrating the first time.
Okay, there I hit share screen.
Now you should click on your
PowerPoint
or whatever you have.
Aha!
Got it.
There you go.
Okay.
Now, if you click on start from the beginning,
Yep.
you're good shape. Good.
All right.
Oh.
So, tomatoes. Nothing like the taste of the sun-ripened tomato. This is actually a Cherokee purple here. An excellent heirloom tomato, the Cherokee purple. Now, this is from my own garden. I recognize the little cage that I have there. So you can see they're pretty productive. Now, perfect for your first tomato sandwich. This little saucer is about 5.5 inches across. You can see it's a pretty good sized tomato. There are many, many heirloom varieties. You have the good, the bad, the ugly, and you can see they're ugly in depending on your view, but that ugliness sometimes makes them the best tomato. Some examples are the Nepal, Mortgage Lifter, Brandywine, Lillian's Yellow, and Black Crim. I've grown the Mortgage Lifter, Brandywine, the Black Crim, and the Cherokee Purple. The thing about heirlooms, they all have a story behind them. Do you guys know the story of the Mortgage Lifter? So during the Depression, there was this gardener in West Virginia, and he was worried about losing his house. So he thought, well, if I could sell these tomatoes, I could pay my mortgage off. And in fact, that's exactly what he did. He grew these tomatoes that he labeled Mortgage Lifter and was able to keep his house during the Depression. How about that? Now, an heirloom versus a hybrid. I'm very interested in heirlooms. So I've done a lot of research on them, but there is nothing wrong with a hybrid except perhaps the flavor. Now, the heirloom is defined as one that has history, seed that has been saved and passed down through the generations. They have a story behind them. They are open pollinated. In other words, they're not pollinated by brush in a greenhouse somewhere. They're in the open air. Tomatoes actually self-pollinate, so just a little shake on them is enough, or just the movement of the air. Thing about open pollinated tomatoes is they come back true to form. I could save those seeds, and I could say them, grow them next year, and I will have the exact same tomatoes. That is not true of hybrids. If you save the seeds of a hybrid and plant them the next year, you won't necessarily get that same tomato. You might, but unlikely. It'll go back to its two parents. If before 1940, it's not a hybrid. A hybrid has been crossbred for variety, production, and disease resistance. Back after 1940, everything got really high production, industrialization is really occurring, and they wanted to be able to ship tomatoes across the country. So they started breeding them to be able to do that. And in those days, people wanted a smooth, round, a uniform tomato. So that's what they were going for. And farmers wanted disease resistance. So as a result, you lost flavor. Are there new heirlooms? Well, not all open pollinated tomatoes are considered heirlooms. That can still happen in a field. You can have 2 tomatoes in your garden, 2 varieties, and they can be pollinated, perhaps accidentally pollinated by a bee. If the bees get there before the tomato has a chance to pollinate itself, then it becomes an open pollinated, but still by a bee instead of the tomato itself. A true heirloom has a story, has history. So not the new ones. Okay, hybrids now have been crossbred for better tomatoes, not necessarily flavored. You get better production, many different varieties, and they are more disease resistant. For example, if you see F1, that indicates it's a first generation that was bred to fight fusarium. V2 indicates it's a second generation. It's a verticillium resistance. Both of those are diseases. Now, the Marnero, I've just discovered this, is a Cherokee Purple heirloom that was bred with a stronger rootstock. When you have a stronger rootstock, that not only makes it a more vigorous plant, you have a bigger root system, but also it provides more disease resistance. So The Cherokee Purple is now available as a hybrid, and maybe that's not so bad. This year I'm going to grow this tomato along with the heirloom Cherokee Purple. They say the Marnero has the flavor of a Cherokee Purple. So I will get back to you on that if you're interested in knowing. Also, Garden Treasure is a 2021 proven winner. You know that brand, proven winner, where they, have contests. This was selected. It is also a hybrid heirloom. So this is new. These are actually heirloom tomatoes that have been paired with a strong rootstock. So it'll be interesting. Now, I used to be able to tell people that look on the back of your seed packets and you could find out if it has disease resistance for your hybrids. I find that's no longer true. So when you shop for tomatoes, what you want to do is just look on your cell phone, look that tomato up and see what it's resistant to. Okay, different types of tomatoes. Indeterminate is one that we all are probably familiar with. It vines, grows, and produces until frost. It's the most commonly grown vining types, what you want to remember here. Determinate is just bred to grow to a certain size and number, then it halts production. There always will be shorter and bushier. Therefore, it's called a bush or a patio tomato. This tomato is particularly good if you're canning. I don't know how many of us do that anymore, but if you grow like 5 or 10 of these at one time, and then you'll get this mass production, and then you have all the tomatoes you need for canning. Now, sort of a new type is the dwarf and vigorous determinate. Both of these stay small, but they keep producing. I've grown the dwarf tomato, and I find the dwarf tomato does stay small, but the tomatoes are smaller. You usually find these on cherry tomatoes. There is now a vigorous determinate, and some of you may know the celebrity tomato. That's what that is. It grows bigger than a dwarf, a little bit bigger than a bush, and it's called a vigorous because it'll keep producing longer than a bush. So that's kind of a good tomato to grow if you don't have a lot of space. Here's an example of what they look like. Just compare the two, the indeterminate with the determinate. Okay, see that heavy production coming on. But once that's done, it's done. In the garden, this is our historic learning garden here. The big indeterminates in the back and the bush type in front. Now, if you decide to grow your own transplants, which I do, and I find it not a difficult thing at all. I just started mine yesterday, as a matter of fact. Tomatoes need soil, water, heat, and light, just like all plants, to germinate and grow. So to germinate them, you need what's called a soilless mix or
I got it.
or a seeding mix. You need a grow light, a heat pad. Most important thing is probably that heat pad, a little water spray bottle, and a moisture cover. And that moisture cover can be those little plastic hooded things. I'll show you in just a second, or just a piece of saran wrap over top. So don't start the seed growing process until about 6 weeks before planting in the garden. I've been guilty of doing that too soon, and I end up with skinny tomatoes, which is not good. You want to plan to set out around Mother's Day in our area. That's around what, May 9th. Now, last year we set them out a week earlier because it warmed up so fast, and the almanac said, danger of cold was over. So after they germinate, you want to remove that cover or plastic wrap. Keep the light source very, very close to the plant for a sturdy plant, 1 to 2 inches. Water daily after that point. Before that point, you're going to use the spray bottle to just kind of keep that area moist. whoops, sorry. When the second set of leaves appear, then you want to transplant to a larger container with potting soil. Still keep it near a light source and water daily, and then add liquid fertilizer. Now, this is my setup. See how this light, you can move it up and down. I actually keep that light right on top of the setup here. So I use a tray underneath so that I don't ruin the wood surface. This heating pad goes underneath your containers. Seed starting mix. I usually put 2 to 3 seeds in there in case they all don't germinate. And back here, can't see it, but there's the little moisture hood. What you're doing is creating humidity in there, like a little cloud effect, so it keeps moisture coming down on those seeds all the time. And then I gradually just raise that up as they grow up. Even after I pot them up, transplant them and pot them up, I keep them under fluorescent lights. I have this. This is my laundry room. I have another little area. And then in my garage, I have the fluorescent lights. It's very easy to do. Even if you can't lower the light, you can raise the plants up to the light. Now, you want to acclimate or harden them off 2 weeks before you plant them. So set them outdoors in a sheltered area, not in direct sun. Bring them in at night until your nighttime temperatures reach 55 degrees. I just set them out on my deck, and I have a tiled floor so I can bring them in at night, and I do that for about 2 weeks. It's messy, but not too bad. We're gardeners, it doesn't matter. Okay, but if you purchase your seedlings, as most people do, don't buy them too early. Even if the box stores have them, they are salespeople. They are not gardeners. Don't buy fully grown 3-foot tall plants. It is not important to have the first tomato. Marty might disagree with me there. Now, look for sturdy plants 6 to 8 inches tall with no signs of disease. Even 12 inches would be okay. No signs of diseases, and no yellowing, no browning, no spots. If you do buy early, take them home and nurse them along until it's time to set them out and repot if necessary. A good thing you can do for the plant sale is to buy those little packs where they have like 6 to 12 to a pack. Take them home, separate them, pot them up. You all know how to do that. And take care of them until the plant sale. And you can take like a $4 investment and turn it into, $24. One thing I'll say about the big box stores, this last year I noticed they used row cover when it got chilly at night. They were actually doing that, so that was good. Okay, don't buy this. These are fully grown determinate or bush type tomatoes. These plants, they're over and done in a very short time. Give yourself the satisfaction of growing your own. You are gardeners, so use your skills, okay? Don't buy these. They're, you're going to put them out in a couple of weeks, it's over. So it's great for canning. It gets a lot of produce at one time. You can't get no satisfaction from this tomato because, you're not growing it yourself. All right, check your label. Note whether they are indeterminate, determinate, or dwarf. I've tried a lot of dwarf, the little zebras, and you'll see those in the ovid shape. You'll find them in the dwarf. They can be any of these types, but they can also be the grape, cherry, ovid, zebra, beefsteak, plum, paste, etc. Many, many varieties. They can be heirloom or hybrid. Check for disease resistant. You're only going to find that on the hybrids. However, the heirlooms do have this sort of an innate disease resistance. So don't think they don't have that. Remember that celebrity is a vigorous determinant if you decide to go that path. Okay, we always start with the soil sample, like every 3 years from Virginia Tech. In between, I have a little thing that tells us, and it's pretty accurate. You can get your pH on that. And Virginia Tech, of course, is very good. They'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Ours always, at the garden, always says, don't add lime, you're too sweet. And that's because we use compost, and compost is known to be more alkaline than acid. But normally, what you're going to do is add compost to a well-prepared soil bed and add any amendments that your soil test indicates. You want to plant those tomatoes deep, 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 sideways even. I know it's hard to do that because you've got this plant and you want as much exposed, but that's not what you want to do. You want to cut off those lower little branches. If the cotyledons are still there, just clip those off. And I'll show you a picture in a minute how to do sideways. Add a 1/4 cup lime to the bottom to work in. Why lime? Even though our garden is more alkaline, tomatoes need the lime to fight blossom end rot. It's the only way that you're going to conquer that. And you can work that in anytime, but better to start at the beginning. Cut off those lower stems. What you want to do is to prevent soil-borne disease. If you're planting in a container, use a mix of compost and potting soil or a soilless mix. If you get that, you're going to have to watch your fertilization. Mulch heavily at the base with landscape fabric, straw, or both. Okay, cannot mulch too much. Okay, if you're planting sideways, deep and sideways, that is pretty limber in there. You have to be a little careful. But if you do this, you're going to get root here and you're going to get roots all along the stem. Roots give you a strong plant and they'll have more disease resistance because that's what their job is. Okay, keep it a little bit shallow in here so that the water can settle when you get to the watering stage. Now, support systems. The stakes are very simple, very inexpensive. They're good for bush plants. Don't injure your plant's roots. I always put the stake in first and then the plant. If you use stakes, you're going to have to limit your tomato plant to 2 stems because that's all it's going to support. Tie your plant to the stick loosely to allow growth. Now, I like cages. Cages are very effective. They're initially expensive, but well worth it. Get the heavy duty only. You think, well, they take up a lot of room, but actually the new ones collapse very flat. So it's not an issue at all, storing those in your garage or under the house, whatever. Trellising is relatively new for me anyhow. We tried that last year at our garden and it worked very well. Just start with, I'll show you a picture, but a T-post string trellis, you get really good airflow, helps avoid airborne disease. Works well if you're single stemming and the suckers are controlled. It's very productive, keeps plants off the ground and away from soil-borne disease. We're going to talk a lot about that. Okay, this is a picture of our garden, and you can see here's the stake. And as I said, it's probably will topple as this tomato gets bigger, so I don't favor that too much. The cages, very effective. The plant grows right up in there. You have to have these wide open so you can get your hands in there to harvest your tomatoes. Another example, note underneath, landscape fabric, straw. This is still not enough. We need to keep adding to that. And over here, the trellis. I hope this part isn't showing. And you can see the trellis system over here. See how the string comes down? The tomato actually will grow up there. And if you look closely, you can see these little clips here and there. That's what supports it. It doesn't really support it, but it guides the tomato. The tomato will vine right up there. And that should be held to 2 stems. Another view, cages. and a different trellis systems, but still the string coming down from above, it's not really attached, it's just got the little clips holding it. Okay, now as that tomato grows, you want to pinch out the suckers. I'll show you a picture of a sucker, but it's in between the main stem and another stem, or the axle there that comes out. If you don't control those, your growth is just going to be out of control. So pinch out a lot of it, not necessarily all. Limit your plant to 2 stems on a stake tomato. How do you do that? Because you know the tomato has 1 stem. So choose a sucker from the bottom of the tomato and let that grow and be your second stem, and get rid of the rest. Your plants will topple over from the weight if you don't. The suckers are small shoots here. I just explained that to you. You want to also, you can replant a few of those suckers to ensure a late season tomatoes. Just pinch that off, and you can actually put it directly into the soil. And if you're uncertain in that, you can just put a few of those in water, and they will root readily, and then you can plant them. Either way will work. It is not necessary to prune or cut out too many suckers on caged tomatoes, as that cage will support a lot of vining growth and provide shade for your tomatoes in the hot months of July and August. Don't prune back on determinate or bush types at all. You need all that foliage for the type of growth that you get there. Okay, so see, here's your main stem coming up. And another one, this is actually a sucker that I've allowed to grow. And this is the sucker. You want to get rid of that one. Okay, just pinch it out. If they're small, they're easy to pinch out just with your fingers. But you can use, if they get too big, use a little pair of scissors. You can also prune out the top. If you are using cages, when that tomato gets up to the top of your cage, just go ahead and prune this out, or pinch it out. I'd cut that out because it's pretty good stuff. And that'll stop the top growth. Okay. All right, now what are the problems that we have here in Virginia? Our section of Virginia, we have heat and humidity. There's just nothing worse in July and August than the humidity. I've exaggerated this, but still, you get the idea. Hot and humid, wet climate. Okay, the winters here are not cold enough to kill disease that lives in the soil. That's the biggest problem. You know, I used to think tomatoes are so easy to grow. Well, it's not so easy. Tomatoes have to fight off a lot of blight and fungus. And that's what, whoops, sorry. So buy tomatoes that are disease resistant. Look for lots of letters if you're buying hybrids. Heirlooms will not have those, but they have that natural resistance. F stands for Fusarium, V verticillium. This is the 2nd generation. Race 3 is like a variant, like our COVID now, that are popping up. As the tomato, grows, it'll develop other issues, and that's what that stands for. So the more numbers you have, the better if you're looking to buy hybrids. PM, powdery mildew, that means it's resistance to that. TOMV, tobacco mosaic, just don't smoke. None of us smoke. I know that. I think that. I hope that. But the problem is the people who raise the tomatoes might be smoking around them. So that can be an issue. All right, this is your worst nightmare here. You think, what can I do? Can this tomato be saved? This tomato could have been saved maybe early on. Now, I don't know. This is early blight, and you can see by the tomatoes, those tomatoes are, in their productive season. So this is not early in the season. Early blight can happen anytime, not just when we put them in. So at this point, you're going to remove this affected foliage. But what you really want to do is prevent this. Make sure you have mulch to prevent soil disease splash up from soil-borne disease. So what you must practice good sanitation, you know. Don't use your clippers on one tomato and go to another before cleaning. Clean hands, containers, and tools. Could be brought into the garden by infected transplants that you fall in the soil and seed. Then you need to understand that once you have tomatoes growing, if you have any disease process, that's going to stay in the soil for years. So your goal is to prevent that disease from moving up into your tomatoes. How do you do that? Two ways: the mulch and watering. You do never water overhead. You water at the bottom. And I suggest that you don't even water with sprinkler head. You know, just take that nozzle off and just have that soft water at the base of it. Okay, other diseases are the verticillium wilt, early blight. This is what it looks like in the beginning. Fusarium. A lot of times that will be come up right up one side of it. That's pretty distinctive there. Late blight, you will see a lot of this. That's the foliage in the beginning. And septoria leaf spot, that's easy to identify. It has that little bullshot effect there and the halo around the outside of that spot. Also bacterial spot. It looks a lot like this, but without that yellow halo. So, you know, you can take these to your, the help desk or extension, but, you know, it's too late. You've got to prevent this. And I agree with Marty, the Piedmont Master Gardeners, you all should be on that site, PiedmontMasterGardeners.org. Please read that, subscribe to it. They have a publication called The Garden Shed, which every month they put out a newsletter on what's going on with the vegetable garden. And it has a lot of information. It's very well written, something that we probably should strive to do. Okay, other problems: blossom end rot and cat face. Just use that lime, work that into your soil as you're planting your thing, and you won't have this. If you see this on your tomatoes later, just toss in some more lines and that will go away. Cat face, I should have had that turned the other way. You can see why it's called cat face. But this is planted in cool temperatures, and you could put it out and have a few cool nights and that will cause that, but that won't continue either once it warms up. Okay, this is what happens when you plant your tomatoes too soon. These were planted mid-April. That's too soon. Dead, 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 dead. Okay, frost destroyed tomatoes. What this person should have done is gone out and covered this with row cover, and they would have survived, maybe. The last frost date in the peninsula area can be as late as early May. Safe date is still Mother's Day. Try row cover and for protection. And remember, that's what causes your cat face when you see that. All right. Now I'm going to go over this, but I'm also going to repeat this several times because it's very important. We're talking about prevention, because once you get the disease, you know, it's over. Blight and fungus are soil-borne, so water at the base of the plant, never overhead. Avoid splashing up on the plant, because once that infected soil splashes up on your tomato, you know, it's going to be bad. Keep the lower stems off the ground, prune to at least 8 inches. So if you do get splashed, like, you know, if it rains and you're not protected, keep it up at least 8 inches and hopefully it won't splash up that high. Use that heavy layer of mulch, straw. Grass is good if it's untreated. Plastic and the landscape fabric I like because it lets the rain coming in and watering come in. Water regularly so that the tomato can absorb calcium from the lime. So you have the lime down there, but if you don't water it on a regular basis, it's not going to be able to absorb it in a timely manner, so you can still get it. Tomatoes don't need a lot of water. Really, twice a week is enough for tomatoes, unless it gets really, really hot. Leave space for air circulation. That's very, very important. I try to stagger mine instead of, real tight together. So, just stagger is what you want to do there. Don't plant in the same space as last year. That's why it's good to have a little map of your garden, in case you don't remember. Or a safer thing is to use containers with a soilless mix or potting soil and compost. That way you can be assured that there is no disease. Containers are not, I don't find, as productive as growing in directly in the soil. However, one of the books that I use called Epic Tomatoes, Greg LaHoye, I forget how to pronounce it, but anyhow, he grows all his tomatoes in bags or containers, and he has like 150, and it works very well for him. How to fight. Once again, water regularly for a healthy plant. It will end that blossom end rot. You can use an organic copper sulfide, as long as it's organic. You don't want to use bad chemical sprays. You can try baking soda spray. That helps keep the plant from absorbing fungus. Try Serenade. Our fellow master gardener, Justin Diaz, put me onto this. As you know, he's a great vegetable gardener. It's an OMRI approved biofungicide. That's organic materials review. So it's been approved to use organically, Serenade. The problem is you have to use that pretty frequently, like every 7 days. So I use a spray pumper and it kind of mists it out. You want to get the foliage above and below the tomato. Use a fertilizer heavy in phosphorus, not nitrogen. Nitrogen is going to give you too much foliage, and this will feed your tomato. That's what it wants. This is so important. Remove the garden debris at the end of the season. Don't leave those if you have diseased tomatoes or any. Get them out of the garden and don't put them in your compost if they're diseased. All right. Once again, be proactive and organic. The mustard plant is recognized to be a natural fungicide. So start a crop in early spring so it can be dug under before you plant your tomatoes. Now, I heard about this at the Master Garden College. Barbara Pleasant gave a presentation. And she said she planted, just sowed mustard seed, not transplant, just put the seed in and it grows like crazy. And then dig it under when it gets, about 3 or 4 inches. Leave it in the ground, the roots and the foliage. If that bothers you, be sure and just leave the roots and just plant around that. That will kill the fungicide, she says. Now, we're going to try that this year for the first time in that garden, so I'll get back to you on that. Good. Allow for good air circulation. Plant them 3 feet apart. If you're in a raised bed situation like we are, that's hard to do, but do your best and try to control your growth. Remember that tomatoes are pollinated by air movement. Rotate. Plant your tomatoes in a different spot from last year, or plant in a clean, bleached container. If it's an old container, bleach it out, get any disease out there. Use that soilless mix or potting soil and compost. Use heavy layers of mulch material underneath, pinch off those lower branches, water from the bottom, not overhead. You can use neem oil. That's good for insects and disease too, really. Insecticidal soap and baking soda may help. Okay, I did put in some mustard just in late fall just to see how it would do, and this is good. This is right at the size that you would like to chop it in. You don't want to let it go to seed because then your whole area is going to be covered with mustard plants all over the place. And I'm not a mustard eater, but I couldn't throw this away. So I used a lot of it in salads and on a sandwich, just like arugula. It gives a nice little zingy taste to your sandwich. I like that. Here is a good example of cutting off those lower branches. See how well she's done that? I mean, look how good her tomatoes look here. So that's a good example. She could use more mulch down there. That's the only thing I would say. And I wouldn't plant peppers next to a tomato plant. These are our little containers that we have. Serenade, approved for organic gardening. This is a concentrate. You probably can buy it in a spray, but this is fairly expensive as I remember. But just mix it up. Try to mix it up fresh as much as you can. Insects, another big problem. There's the old tomato hornworm. I found this on my tomatoes. I have a hard time finding them because, they camouflage themselves. So what you have to do is look for bare stems where your foliage has been eaten away. And if you start seeing little black pellets, those are fecal pellets, all over the place, that's your hornworm. So you want to remove him from the garden because he will literally eat that plant alive. We really watch out for him. Now, if he has the eggs on top, from the parasitic wasp, it's okay to leave them because that wasp is a beneficial for the garden. However, I am not willing to sacrifice my foliage, so I take him off and I don't kill him, but I put him outside the garden. And you can do what you like, but that's what I would do. I would, 3.5 to 4 inches long, that guy is. Other insects, slugs, you use that dish of beer, spider mites, trips, whiteflies, aphids. Use your neem oil and soapy water spray. Japanese beetles, I go around with a little bucket of soapy water and you can't pick them off. I don't know why I put that in, but you can knock them off into that water because they're very fast. They move around. Cutworms, use half of a toilet paper holder around the stem when you plant them. I haven't seen cutworms in our gardens. I haven't seen nematodes in our garden. Now, listening to all this, you probably think, are tomatoes really worth it for all this work? Yes, they are. And so I want you to do, okay, another bad guy, that brown marmorated stink bug. Every single one of you know what the stink bug looks like. I know that. So get rid of him. I knock him off into the soapy water. You want to seek and destroy him. You can tell that you have him because you'll see these small punctures and the small white hard spots on the surface of the tomatoes. Then start looking for him, okay? A good thing that you can do is to practice companion planting. Tomatoes thrive. I didn't know this, but particularly around carrots. Tomatoes and love carrots. So the other thing are marigolds. These are not French marigolds. Really, you want that flat surface marigolds. It's better for pollinators. And it will bring it'll ward away the bad insects is really what this one will do. And basil is great for your tomatoes and with your tomatoes. You want to avoid planting with other nightshade veggies like eggplant. Never put eggplant with tomatoes. And peppers, potatoes. Please don't buy that plant where they have the tomatoes on top and potatoes on bottom. That's just not right. Okay, so avoid this. You want to ward off the bad pest, encourage the good pest. Now, companion gardening. This is our garden. And we have decided that we're going to have not only a monarch way station, but we're also going to practice companion planting in our gardens. So around the border, we have established this. This is in the beginning of the season. See, our plants aren't really taking off just yet. But look, as the season goes along, we have wonderful plants there that will help our garden. This was begun by Barbara Gustafson, our old leader, and now Bev Baker is heading that up with Helen as her helper. And Kim and I do a lot of the vegetable gardening there. And here is the fruition of our companion planting. Well, if you stop by the garden during the plant sale in May, we won't be this far along, but you'll see that we're pretty well established there. We're very proud of our garden. Okay. Please do not let your tomatoes rot on the vine. Ask a fellow gardener or a neighbor to harvest for you if you are unable to maintain your plot or your plants. If you let them rot on the vine, you are inviting insects, birds, and critter damage. And that means you're not a good neighbor. If you do that, you're going to lose all those great tomatoes. Harvest when they're green or just as the tomato is ripening. Take them home to ripen, particularly if they're about 3/4 of the way there, and in August when, in September when they're coming to an end. You have worked too hard to waste the fruits of your labor. Consider donating to a food bank if you have too much. We do that. We have dedicated beds that go into fish who nicely gave us that space for our garden. You want to, then you can quick roast them in olive oil, garlic, freeze those tomatoes for mid-January treat. This is my favorite thing to do. These are San Marzano tomatoes. They're not a full-size tomato. They're bigger than a grape tomato. I put down olive oil, slice those up with some slivers and garlic, roast them for 20 minutes. And I like them over angel hair pasta with some fresh basil mixed in. They're just not much better than that. Okay, any questions? Bill is going to, if you have a question, put it down and Bill will monitor it. I'll be glad to help you with that if I can.
Great job, Harriet.
Oh, thank you very much.
Harriet, that was excellent, and really appreciate your encyclopedic knowledge. I mean, it's just,
Not really.
it's just wonderful. And as you all can see, she really is such an asset to us out at the Learning Garden. It's just so helpful to have her there as a resource, and all of us continually learn from her, and just really a treat. I might suggest if you have questions, I've been watching the chat and haven't seen any show up in the chat. So if there are people that have a few questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can unmute and ask, but I try to keep it as not a free-for-all. I might also suggest that this might be time for people to take a brief break. Please keep it brief because we have a lot to cover in the business meeting. I'm sure Marty will second that. And so if people can try to get back for the business meeting by, can we make it 10:05? It's 9:56 right now. So 10:05 to convene the business meeting again.
Yeah, that's good. 9 minutes, 10:05. I agree, Bill.
Okay,
Let's start up.
very good.
Yeah.
And Harriet, if you don't mind, and anyone who has questions, if you can stay and we'll try to get your questions answered during that break.
Okay, that sounds good.
And Harriet, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, if I tried to grow seeds and had all that equipment in my laundry room, I would be divorced. So that's yeah.
Actually, it's not that much when they're transplants.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. Like usage, I buy the 6-packs and then repot them, put them in a sunny window, and get them 6 inches tall. That makes the best tomato.
Yeah.
And wait till May to plant them.
Right.
You're right about that. So
I see a couple questions, but first of all, eggplant's a nightshade. You don't want to mix your nightshade plants together like tomatoes and eggplant. It's disastrous. So that's why. And yes, I do buy my seeds from companies. Like I like Johnny's and seeds of what is it, Seeds of Change or something, and saving sites also. Yeah, this year I'm doing, oh, I forgot to mention the Garden Pleasure. Oh, no, I did too. The 2021, I'm growing that, and the Marnero and the Heirloom Cherokee and the Nepal, but not a whole lot of them. I hope to have a few for the plant sale, but not too many this year because there is a limit to space.
And Harriet, Burpee, you can buy the little tomato plants. They mail them to you. And I
Yeah.
bought
Yeah.
3 or 4 odd varieties
Yeah,
last year.
that's true.
Yeah.
You can definitely do that.
Yeah.
And they're good. And also you can buy grafted tomatoes. I didn't even touch on that. I
Yeah.
did take a little class at Master Garden College on grafting, so I know how to do it. But to me, you know, if you're a big production farmer and you're buying those grafted tomatoes, great, but you know, not that worthwhile. Okay. And other questions, they go by so fast, I didn't see them all. How about you, Bill? Did you monitor them?
I'm looking at them right now. Let's see. Most of them are wonderful compliments for you. That's
Oh,
for
well,
sure. You'll have to go back and read them for sure.
yeah. If I hit on chat, can I see them myself? Is that what I should do? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. Let's see.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Do you buy? Yes.
There's a question from Cheryl Roediger about,
Oh, yeah.
would you mind explaining the
Yeah.
baking soda spray on the tomato plants?
Right. The baking soda, I think, is a fourth of a cup to a gallon, Cheryl, but you can,
Read the label.
yeah, you can probably look that up online, but I think that's right. I went to talk about mine with no crop rotation in the bottom of the holes. Yep, that all sounds good. Yeah, we don't do any, oh, he doesn't do any crop rotation using the pellicized lime in the bottom, the mixes plant. Well, what kills the disease though? Have you ever tried this? I don't know. What does that have to do with killing disease is what I don't understand. On that from Mary DeSalvo. See if you can find out, Mary, and let me know about that. What does that have to do with killing disease, which is the #1 thing you need to do? Thank you. Okay, good. Is that everybody?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Oh, where did you find Serenade? I ordered that online, the Serenade from Amazon. How do you keep squirrels? Fencing, fencing. For I could do a whole presentation, or Bill could, on keeping critters out of the garden. We have a battle with a groundhog or a woodchuck every year. You would not believe what that man has done in terms of fencing. Birds pecking tomatoes. Pick those ripe tomatoes, and there's netting you can throw over those tomatoes too. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So
what is your favorite source of seeds? Where do you order your seeds, Harriet?
Different places. I almost need to get up and go to my laundry room to get my seed packets, but I like Johnny's. And what is that? Seeds of something. I forget it now. But you know who has those seeds normally is Earth Fair. Yeah, they have them. And I saw them, believe it or not, at Fresh Market has some of those. It's a botanical site too. I'll run to my laundry and get my seed packets and I can tell you.
Okay.
Very good. Excellent. While we have a moment, if there's anyone here, I'd like to just give an advertisement for the Historic Triangle Learning Garden. You may have heard that we were kind of threatened this year that we might lose our garden property, but fortunately we've been able to keep it. And in fact, there's a possibility that in future years we may be able to expand it and make a mirror garden to double our space. So we're kind of excited about that. We hope that as you come to the plant sale, you'll take Harriet up on the invitation to come out and take a tour, look around, see what we're about. Those of you who haven't been out there at the garden for a while. Oh, great.
Seeds of Change, Seeds of Change. I love that company. And the new Garden Treasure, you can only get that through the Proven Winner site.
Okay, very good.
And Burpee, and a couple of them, I just had a hard time finding, but those really, and Johnny's, I like Johnny's a lot too.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
It's funny.
well, very good. Harriet, I was just giving a brief advertisement for the Learning Garden.
Yes.
Again, inviting people to come out on May 1st and
Yes. Yeah.
take a tour like you had invited them.
Right. We won't have a lot in the garden. Our mustard will be gone by then. It will be dug under. So we're trying different experiments this year. The mustard is a big deal. I've not grown tomatoes in containers at the garden before. I have on my deck. And I'm going to use bleach clean containers and potting soil and compost. I'm going to do that and give that a try. And that'll be in a totally different environment. And I'm going to compare the heirloom with the hybrid Cherokee Purple in the Marnero. I'm excited to do that.
Sounds very good.
Yeah.
Well, Harriet, thanks again for a wonderful presentation and for taking our questions. You're a delight, and we appreciate you being a continued resource for us. Thank you.
Uh-huh.